Greetings all, and welcome to lucasprues. So we're continuing the great Bf109 in 1/72nd scale exploration today with the Mistercraft Bf109 G-12. So this is interestingly the two-seat trainer version of the 109, and as far as I can make out, there's only two companies that do one in 72nd scale, and that is AZ Model and Mistercraft. So I've already looked at some AZ Model Bf109s. Let's see if Mistercraft can produce a half-decent kit for once. So we'll stick to the usual program, have a look at the box first, then the instructions, the plastic, and then at the very end I'll give my opinion on this kit. So, starting out with the front of the box, as you've seen, we have a rather nice little painting of a Italian two-seat Bf109 with a few mismatching panel lines and some old German markings, so possibly an aircraft that was rebuilt or had a lot of spares from other planes put into it. So yeah, box art looks quite pretty. On the side here we've got the scheme as a side view, and it says we've got decals for 4 painting schemes, so we'll find out how many we actually have in there. On the side here, just a repeat of the box art. On the top here, again, similar thing, bunch of warnings and that sort of stuff. On the side of the box here, we've got 2 of the German schemes there, and then just another repeat of the box art, and nothing on the back. So, I'll pop this open. The parts all came in a single plastic bag, however I've already removed them, but we'll set those aside for now. And the decals, and as you can see, we appear to have somehow ended up with 2 sets of the decals rather than 1, because these are exactly the same markings, although there appears to be some rather nasty printing errors with the spare swastika. We'll have a look at the decals and complain about those later. First of all, we'll start off with the instructions. So on the top here we have the box art, some pretty poorly translated descriptions of the Bf109 and its G-12 training version, and apart from that, nothing else. So the instructions appear to be in the fold-out format, which I really don't like, regardless of the manufacturer, but oh well, it could be worse. At least we've got instructions. So on the first page here, we've got a sprue map, so there should be 3 grey plastic sprues, which it looks like we got, and a single clear one with the 2-section canopy. Well, the 2-pilot canopy, but it's in 1 section here. Opening up, it starts off with the interior. So as you can see, there's a pretty nicely looking detailed cockpit floor there with a joystick. So you're building 2 of those by the looks of things, because yeah, I'm assuming you build 2 of them because there's got to be 2 pilots' seats and controls for the trainer and the instructor. So you're building those 2 and then sticking them into the 2 fuselage halves. Looks like there's a little bit of sidewalling detail in the instructions, which, as you'll find out, is a bit interesting. Then once we've joined the fuselage halves, there's the tail section. It's all a little bit all over the place, really, with the layout, but at least you can recognize what's going on. So there's tail section. Then you're putting the filter or the air intake for the supercharger on the side there into place, putting the exhausts on and the little fairing that covers them, and the center section of the cowling goes on there. Then we've got the 2 wing halves, so there's 1 section for the lower half and then 2 for the upper half that you glue together. Then you've got a few small accessories like the balancers for the controls, landing gear, which has a wheel, a strut, and then the fairing cover. As for the propeller, 3 of the propeller blades are separate, and then you put the cowling on, which to me is a little bit annoying. I know Italeri did this with their Bf109, and it annoyed me a little bit, because if you don't line up the propeller halves, they look all wonky, but hopefully they fit a bit better than the Italeri ones. Then you're joining the wings to the fuselage from the lower section there, 2 elevators on the back there, and the tail wheel. After that, popping the landing gear into place, then you just slap the propeller on. Looks like there's no way to assemble it and have it spin, which is a little bit of a shame, but I know not everyone cares about that kind of thing. Couple of little bulges that go on the top of the wings there as a separate piece, a little pitot tube, then you've got a mast and the canopy goes on top. Otherwise, assembly is pretty simple. We've got 4 markings included, so all of the instructions are included in colour for the markings, which is pretty nice. You've got 1 for the Italian Air Force in Italy 1945, so pretty late in the war. Then we've got a training unit from Germany in 1944, another one from JG101 in France, and another one in Germany 1945. So pretty late in the war. You've got your painting marking guide here, and as you can see, they've done it similar to Revell. You've got a color code with a letter, and then you've got, looks like Federal Standards and RAL colors, so at least they've got the official German colors, RLM 74, 75, and 76, which when I'm doing German aircraft, I like to personally use AK Interactive and Vallejo for, although a lot of other people like other brands, so at least you've got the RLM codes there. And yeah, you've got both sides of the aircraft. Looks like you've got a few aircraft that have mismatching panel lines, although it doesn't really say what colors to paint those variations, but oh well, you can use a little bit of creativity with that. And yeah, decals, yeah, the markings are relatively easy to see how they are placed. So yeah, instructions, they look pretty decent. It's a little bit messy to follow in some areas, and the propeller assembly I'm not a big fan of, but at least they look okay. But let's see if the kit actually matches with the instructions. I thought we'd start off with the sprue that's unique to this kit, and that is the 109 sections of the fuselage that are extended. And right away we have a bit of a discrepancy between this kit and the instructions. As you can see, the cockpit floor is a lot more basic. It's a lot shorter. If I get the instructions back out, it's a lot shorter. It's missing all of the cannon bulge covers there, and a lot of rudder pedal details, and there's no trim wheel there. And the joystick, at least the joystick looks a bit more decent, as you can see. But yeah, interior cockpit floor definitely does not match the instructions. Fuselage halves, as you can see, all of the detail is recessed. It's pretty weak, and there is a very weird grainy texture on the mold, so pretty low quality sprues. And there is a fair bit of flashing in certain areas, but hey, that's not the end of the world. You can always clean it up, and you can rescore panel lines. And again, the tail, pretty similar story. It's got a weird sandy, grainy texture to it. Not much detail on the tail. You can see in the instructions they show all of that detail on the rudder, but there's none really. And even worse, when you look inside the cockpit halves, there is absolutely none of the promised detailing that the instructions show. It's just an empty wall. But let's see if it gets a little bit better with the next set of sprues. So the next section here is the wings and the other parts for the single seat 109. As you can see, the wings pretty similar to the fuselage. The details are okay. They're recessed, which is nice, and at least on this one they've actually done a bit of a texture for the ailerons there. However, probably going to need to rescore some of the panel lines, and yeah, there's a fair bit of flashing, but nothing too serious there. Underside of the wings, again, similar story. They've actually done a little bit of rivet detail, but it's pretty messy, and as you can see, there's a lot of areas where the recessed panel lines are like half done, uninterrupted, so yeah, bit of rescoring going to be needed, but not the end of the world. Not much detailing on the inside, a few little ejector pin markings which might need to be cleaned up for the interior of the landing gear bay, but it'll be pretty subtle, and you're probably not going to see too much of it unless you have it hanging up on your roof with the landing gear down. Moving on to some of the finer details, we've got a little antenna which looks okay, tail wheel there which looks alright as well, a sand filter for the air intake which looks decent, small antenna there for the radios which I think goes on the canopy, and another joystick which looks decent. The landing gear bay doors, they have a bit of raised details on them, but it's yeah, they're not very well done. They're pretty basic, and yeah, it doesn't look the best. Here's the headrest for the pilot, and they've actually got a little bit of detail on it. I don't know if it looks quite correct. It sort of looks like the pilot's got 4 little spikes that will dick into the back of his head rather than a nice little cushion. But, don't know, maybe it was a special version. Little bit of interior detailing for the landing gear bay. They've tried to do some raised rivet detail, but honestly, the rivets don't line up. It looks pretty crap. Struts for the landing gear, and they're yeah, pretty messy. There's a little bit of detailing, but there's a lot of flash which kind of covers that. Here we've got the elevator. The other one's actually fallen off. Here it is. And as you can see with the elevators, pretty similar to the fuselage, a bit of raised and recessed detailing, but a ton of flash, and it's pretty weak details. And there's actually a few chips and marks out of the plastic which don't look too good, might need to get puttied over. Here we've got the spinner for the propeller, and yeah, as you can see, separate blades. They're pretty poorly molded, so I reckon they're going to be an absolute pain to get to line up, which is annoying. At least the front section has a little bit more detail for the pilot's floor there. There's a little bit of detailing for the anti-slip areas. You can see the bulge for the cannon cover, and they have at least done some rudder pedals, so a little bit better on that one, but it's still definitely not as detailed as it looks in the instructions, which is a shame. So that's pretty much everything on that sprue. The third sprue contains the original 109 single seat, and as you can see, it's pretty similar to the two-seater. No detail on the interior, and there's some recessed panels. So yeah, maybe you want to use that for a spare, but possibly not. There's some other finer details, like you've got the control balances here, which have pretty much no detail on them. They're sort of just two sticks. Here's the air intake for the supercharger, and they've done it so that it'll be hollow, so there'll be a bit of a hole there, which is nice, and surprisingly, not as much flashing as I'd expect on a part like that. As for the cowling cover there, you can see there's some massive imperfections in the middle there, like some raised scratches and all sorts of nasty stuff that'll be hard to clean up. The exhausts, they look pretty sorry. There's barely any detail on them. They're sort of just raised, and what detail there is pretty poorly molded. Here's the covers for the exhausts to hide the flames a little bit, I believe, and yeah, they're okay. They're relatively thin, not too imperfectly molded. Honestly, they don't quite look right. There's something about them that looks a little bit out of scale, but I think that's an earlier 109 set of tires. There is a second set here, and as you can see, it's all raised details, which in my opinion doesn't look very good, but at least they look a little bit bigger than the Academy's 109 wheels, so they're a little bit bigger, which is good. Optional cannon pods, pretty basically detailed, but we're not going to worry about them for this kit, I don't believe. Another tail section. I think this is a later version. Let's put them side by side and see. Yeah, they look pretty much the same, except for the rudder being at a slightly different angle. So I think they've tried to do like the wooden tail, which was a later 109 feature, but the shape is the same as the original 109 tail, which is incorrect. So you're probably better off using this one. It actually has a tiny bit better detail. I think they've actually tried to do some fabric there, and a fair bit of recessed detail, which is, yeah, not too bad on that tail. So I'd probably go for this tail section rather than the other. The distinctive G model bulges for the engine cowling, they look okay. Again, a little bit of a sandy texture. It almost looks like cast metal or something in this scale. So yeah, you might want to sand it down just a tiny bit to make it smoother. And then you've got the little fairings for the wheels, which are pretty tricky to pop out, I reckon. You're probably going to end up cutting them, and then, yeah, you're probably better off just using putty to create those bulges. So yeah, quality's pretty bad on the grey sprues, and definitely not to the level of detail that's indicated in the instructions. As for the clear canopy here, yeah, it's a pretty similar story. It's pretty hard to see through it. It's not impossible, but there's a fair bit of distortion in the corners, and frankly, the plastic looks pretty thick, and you can see there's a bunch of scratches on it already just from being molded. Lots and lots of flashing. There's a fair chunk here. And the bulges at the back there are pretty shallow. They're not very well defined. So I mean, it is a tricky canopy shape to get, where the two-seater has the little bulges on the side there, but they could have done a bit better, I'd hope. At least there's some raised lines for the canopy frames, although they are, as you can see, incredibly thick canopy frames. So yeah, if you've got a spare for a two-seat 109, I'd recommend pulling it out or finding a vacuum-formed one instead. As for the decals, as I've mentioned, we have two sets that are exactly the same. I think we should only have one, so hopefully someone out there is not missing their decals for this kit. If they are, let me know. Maybe I can send them. But yeah, they're pretty basic. These ones are black and white, and yeah, already I can see the shape on the Balkenkreuz is pretty bad. There's this weird black splodge which looks like a mistake there. The quality in terms of the level of detail, it's not so good. There's a few imperfections on the B and that, so yeah, Mistercraft decals tend to be of terrible quality, and when you do put them in water, they dissolve like an aspirin tablet and break up into sections. So I'm not expecting much out of these decals. That's just a spare Balkan Crits. I think one of the schemes had a bit more of a faded one. As for the Italian markings, I don't know why they haven't molded or they haven't printed the green on the flag. So you've got separate decals for the green. Maybe it's just part of the printing process, but to me it's a little bit weird and it's pretty low quality. And honestly, it looks like the black outline is faded on the 242. And keep in mind, this has only just come out of the box, really. It hasn't been abused or anything. They're not very good looking decals. As for the common stencils, yeah, they've managed to get the detail reasonably fine, but there's a lot of like graininess and little mistakes here and there that look like they've been faded. So yeah, not very impressed with these decals. But I kind of was expecting to be disappointed, being a Mistercraft kit. But anyways, I'll pop this all away and give my final thoughts. Well, what can I say? I mean, it's a pretty cheap kit. I think I got this one for around about $10 and it was on sale. So at least you get what you paid for. I'm not angry like with the Airfix 109G, where you get it and it's $30 and there's no interior. At least with this one, you're paying a pretty cheap price, so you kind of expect to not be as good. Having said that, if you want a two-seat 109, even though this one's the cheapest on the market, and at least in Australia, it's pretty easy to get your hands on, I'd just get the AZ model if I had to get it again, or wanted to do a decent two-seat one. So I'll do a build video on this and see how I go. I'll do my best, but frankly, yeah, it's a pretty mediocre kit, but at least it's at a mediocre price. So if you want a relatively cheap two-seat 109, this is the kit for you. If you want a two-seat 109 that's half decent, get the AZ model one. But that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching me suffer as I looked at this kit and felt sad that my instructions looked better than the actual parts I got. If you did, please be sure to leave a like, and feel free to leave any humorous quips or any questions in the comment section below. And big shout out, as always, to my wonderful patrons for helping me fund buying these kits. I apologise that I've spent some of my patron money on this kit, but oh well. People like watching me suffer, I think, a tiny bit on YouTube, so I thought, why not get this to suffer with? Thanks again, and until the next video, model on.